Hey, FanboyNation.
This is your pal Daffy Duck, and you're watching.
You're watching.
We're watching. You're watching Fanboy.
Fanboy. Fanboy.
Fanboy.
Fanboy.
A fanboy, etc.
FanboyNation.
Dot. I assume Tom.
The very first show I ever saw at the Maverick Theater was when they were still at the Block in Orange, which is now called the Outlets of Orange. That's how long ago it's been. Most recently, I saw King Kong, which is a fabulous production going into its final weekend this weekend, but coming soon, Plan 9 from Outer Space, the owner, the founder, the producer, the man that is behind catering and everything else that goes on over there, Brian Newell. How are you today?
I'm doing great, Robert. Thank you.
Listen, King Kong was absolutely spectacular. I couldn't believe the fact that you had three different stages going on. You had the live performers, you had the man in the gorilla suit behind the curtain, very much Wizard of Oz-esque, doing all the special effects back there, and then a green screen to interact with him later on. I mean, just the production was incredible.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. I'm very happy the way it turned out. It was a lot of work.
One thing you said at the very beginning of the show, which actually made it a bit more enjoyable, was the fact that you said, you know, if they're in step together, everything is fantastic, and if there's a couple of missteps, it just makes the show that much funnier.
Right.
So you know what you're doing, and you're having a lot of fun doing it. And with Plan 9 from Outer Space coming August 30th, which is opening weekend for it, this is your original adaptation of Ed Wood's, shall we say, classic sci-fi film from 1959.
Oh, yes, classic. On what level of classic, we won't need to define, but yes, definitely a classic in his world.
Right. There's the 57 Chevy Bel Air, and then there's the Ford Pinto, you know, both over 25 years old, considered classics.
Classics, yes.
Congratulations on all this. The one coming up after that is, I believe, Evil Dead.
Night of the
Living Dead. I'm sorry, Night of the Living Dead, followed by the Christmas one coming up, of course, is
Santa Claus Conquers the Martians.
Pia Zadora's very first film, long before she ever won a Golden Globe. So you have found an incredible market of adapting films to stage. What's it like taking something like Ed Wood's work, and especially when it's Plan 9 from Outer Space, and how do you, shall we say, improve on his original work?
Well, see, now that is one area that I knew from the beginning before I started the adaptation. I didn't want to improve on it. I wanted to do the worst stage production of his show, because we all know that he set the bar of filmmaking to a very low level with his production value and his whatever filmmaking skills. And I didn't want to improve along that, because honestly, let's face it, that's the charm of the film, is the fact that it's so kind of awkward and all over the place and strange. So I wanted to maintain that overall feel, but I wanted to create a live experience. Like, well, what if Ed Wood couldn't shoot his picture, but had to put it on a stage? How would he do that? And so for me, that became the fun part of the discovery and the adaptation, was trying to create a bad show, so to speak, deliberately, but try to do it in such a way that the directors, the producer, didn't intend to be bad. It just came off as bad performing. And so that was a fine line. And I don't even know if I've achieved it all the way with some of the scenes in the show. I feel like it's very easy for performers and even myself to kind of, you know, push the comedy a lot. And the temptation for that happens, especially when you get audience reactions. For me, ideally, I wanted everything to be delivered very straight and honest, but done in a very amateur, awkward way. So the motto I have attached to my show is, the worst play based on the worst movie ever made, and you won't get your money back.
Well, you have a built-in audience for this because there are return clients coming back from last year.
Yes. This is our 11th year doing Plan 9 from Outer Space on stage.
How fantastic is that? What's it like going from year 1 to year 11 just on this show? Because the theater's been around 24 years, going into its 25th, and I believe 20 years at the current location in Fullerton.
Right. Yeah. Next year will be 20 years in Fullerton. And so, well, to tell you the truth, there's a one performer that's been with me since the very beginning, Sean Coutu, and we were kind of talking about it last night about how when we rehearse it, last night we had our first rehearsal, the show comes in under an hour when you perform it, but when you're rehearsing it, there's so many scenes, there's so many nuances that it takes 3 hours to rehearse this thing as you're just slowly working it. And I remember the first time we were doing that, some of the actors were like, I think you're going to have to cut this down. These rehearsals are taking way too long. And it's because there's just so much happening and the scenes are not very long, and a lot of technical things and so forth, staging and comic timing and bits and stuff like that. But when you get it actually in live speed, it was quite shocking that it came in under an hour. We were all like, what? And of course, the first time we ran it at full speed, we were not prepared for how quick the scenes came. So a lot of people are doing multiple roles, and they're having to change costumes at such a fast rate that I dumbed down a lot of the costumes. I mean, it's like, just swap a wig out and come out on stage. We don't have any more time, so, and I think that that's kind of the, charm that I was going for, of like, hey, we don't have time to worry about details. Let's just move on.
Which is very Ed Wood of you.
Like Ed Wood was when he was shooting his picture, right?
Right. Here's the thing about Ed Wood. Yes, he's legendary for making bad films, but he's been so influential in so many careers. And here's something that Ed Wood could have said that not very many people could have. At least I made a movie.
Yes, that's so true. Hats off to him. He made quite a few of them. But I think what's one of the coolest parts, and I think the Tim Burton movie hit on this too, was his relationship with Bela Lugosi. He was awestruck by this cinema icon and also devastating by, his circumstances, and just giving him some life on film again in the end, as bizarre as it was and as unusual as it was. There's a romantic tale there of Hollywood, between the inexperienced, unknown filmmaker and the, what was once the megastar, which still is. Everybody knows who Bela Lugosi is. And I just think those kind of stories are amazing. And so to me, with Plan 9, having Bela Lugosi in his last screen performance, even though when they shot the footage, he didn't even have the script for Plan 9, it just, to me, I love that romantic notion that Ed was like, no, I'm making Bella appear one more time beyond the grave. And I think that's just fantastic. And I try to capture that same essence in that Ed did in Plan 9, where he used the stock footage, but every time we had to see Bella on screen, it was another actor, covering his face or something to that effect. And when you see the show, you're going to see what I came up with as a play alternative, as opposed to the, what they did in the film.
Well, I can't wait to see
now,
it.
The special effects in this are done live. So we have saucers on strings, we have every nuance that you would expect to have in one of these B-movie sci-fis, but at even a more elementary level. And I think that's half of the fun too, is creating it live at the same time with the performers, because then you kind of get to experience everything happening. And when it doesn't work, it's even better. In fact, that was the one thing you mentioned about Kong, how that, we try to get everything right. And when it goes wrong, well, that's kind of funny. Well, in Plan 9, we don't really try to get everything right. We kind of hope and that it won't go right, that we can react to that or, try to cover it up. Um, it's not uncommon for actors and scenes to have stuff go awry and break on stage, which the audience just eats up because they can tell, like, well, this show is kind of falling apart at the seams, but that's what we love about it because they're still telling it.
Is there ever a temptation? Because you said Plan 9 from Outer Space is dubbed the worst movie ever made, but I don't think whoever gave it that title saw Monos the Hands of Doom.
I I gave it that title for marketing reasons. And the only reason is I feel like out of all the, so-called bad classic movies, Plan 9 is the one that more people have heard of than Manos and all these other ones that are out there. I would say in recent times, um, the Room has probably, jumped that level, but it doesn't have the charm that Ed Wood had with Plan 9, and his whole, bodies, whatever, grave diggers from outer space. I mean, holy crap. What a great, subtitle to a movie. And then he got this Criswell character to kind of try to make it, make all logic and sense, and you're like, wow, that is so crazy that he kind of dreamt this up. And so imaginative at the same time, so bizarre, which, I think at the time that was out of the norm, obviously. I feel like nowadays it doesn't seem that abnormal. There's been so much pop culture that pushes that envelope all the time that you kind of grow to expect the absurd, right? But, he was kind of a pioneer in that area. And that was one of the things that appealed to me to even take this on, was the fact that it had this, you know, notorious, infamous type of, I don't know. I'm a loss of words here, but where people would always go to Plan 9 as an example of absurdity and like, well, this is how far a crazy movie can go. And I thought, oh, I like that. He's pushing the envelope in that area. And so to me, I was kind of, honored actually to take on the project and give it the respect, um, but at the same time, the tongue in cheek.
And I think he would be very much appreciative of something that was tongue in cheek in honor of his work.
I would hope.
Yeah. I mean, we eventually got the movie Victor Victoria, but everyone does forget about Glenn or Glenna. And
Yes,
that was
that's
the
right.
first time that something like that was done in, the sideshow freak aspect of things being, put on screen.
Right, right.
When you when you
Yes,
do
go ahead.
something, I'm sorry, go ahead, Brian.
No, no, you go ahead. You ask the questions.
Oh,
I'll just.
I was gonna ask, when you do an adaptation like this, or
Mhm,
when, the Martians conquer Santa Claus,
mhm.
or whatever else that goes along with it, how do you first pitch that to your wife, who's been on board with you from the get-go with all of this, to go, you know what, Plan 9 is the adaptation. Night of the Living Dead is one that we're gonna do. King Kong, we're gonna go all
Yeah,
out for this one and use 3 different sound stages for it.
yeah. When I pitch my wife Heidi ideas, often, um, she never really opposes them or says like, you shouldn't do that. Um, I mean, she does if it just sounds like it's not going to be successful or crazy. But for the most part, she's pretty neutral and like, okay, well, go ahead, let's see what happens, and and that's great. I don't have to worry about that. Um, I think my bigger concern is my patrons, if they, if I go too far, how far is too far? Will I lose them as an audience if they're like, wow, this is not the kind of place I want to come to. They're just doing really stupid crap. And but my first test of that was original musical I did the same year that I first did Night of the Living Dead and Santa Claus Conquers the Martians. I had this idea of doing Godzilla the musical. I couldn't use the name Godzilla, so we had to go with Giant Green Lizard the musical. And this thing was ridiculous. It took place on both of my stages, and Act One was in my cabaret. Act Two, I built the skyline of Tokyo out of cardboard boxes, and that would fall apart and get destroyed by the giant lizard while singing these ridiculous ballads and songs and stuff. And I thought when I was putting that up, I'm like, okay, this is where I find out if my audiences are like interested in this stuff, or I just can't go down this way and this path. And so I did it, and it sold very well. I wasn't necessarily happy with the final result. It wasn't anything I'd ever bring back again. But I learned my lesson that, well, I think these people are actually craving this kind of stuff. And then when I did Night of the Living Dead, obviously that isn't a parody at all. It's a true adaptation. I really try to get the frights in there and the feel that Romero had in his film. And that one I try to elevate even more of the danger element. But then when I got to Santa Claus Conquers the Martians, I was like, okay, here we go. This one's a stinker. People are going to want to see this. Just the title alone, whenever I tell someone what we're doing for the holidays, they're like, I'm sorry, what did you say the name of the show is? And it's, again, so absurd that the curiosity takes over. They have to see it. And I have to say again, when I was putting that show up, I always say this to the audiences, I didn't know if anyone would stay for Act Two because it is just so hokey. And they stayed, and it's the #1 selling show here at the Maverick. It sells out within days. I have 3 times the amount of performances on Santa Claus than they do from Kong and stuff like that. And people just go nuts for that. And so again, that was an indication that, if I could come up with other projects in that kind of theme. And my first thought after the success of Santa Claus Conquering the Martians was Plan 9 from outer space. So it sat there for about 6 years before it finally happened. I molded around all the different ways I was going to try to produce it. And in the end, I came up with what, I do now. And I have to say that that was, and it still is not as the most successful of the adaptations I've done. In fact, it's only runs 2 weeks because I don't necessarily get sold out audiences, but the other ones do. I kind of thought Plan 9 would fall on that, but I think Plan 9 is obscure enough and unfamiliar enough that people just didn't want to take the chance on their entertainment dollars to go see what that thing was all about. But which is interesting, though, is over the past 12 years since I've done it, there's been kind of a resurgence of Plan 9 from outer space. I see it a lot more at fan sites and just I went to Midsummer Scream in Long Beach a couple of weeks ago, and they have all the typical horror characters in there, and then they have posters and stuff for Plan 9 from outer space, and I'm all, wow. So there's younger generations that are getting familiar with this. And actually last year, I had more sold out shows than I've ever had of Plan 9 from outer space. And I'm scratching my head and I'm like, well, we haven't done anything different. What is going on here? So maybe Plan 9 is kind of getting a resurgence in pop culture. And only time will tell if I have to extend the run longer every year. But it is kind of interesting to see how pop culture does, go through these waves, over time.
Well, it did with Santa Claus Conquers the Martians. I mean, that was a forgotten film till Mystery Science Theater 3000. The guys who do riff tracks for the people that
Yes.
aren't old enough to know MS3, or MST3K.
Right.
And that brought the resurgence of it. And I have the movie because it's just so bad, it's good. The fact that the premise of the film is Martian kids are terrible, so we have to kidnap Santa Claus because he keeps Earthlings in line,
Yeah.
just makes it even better.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And it was also a commentary on the Red Scare and the Soviet Union. The Martians were supposed to be like Soviets, and their kids are programmed. They have no emotions. They don't play. They live in this horrible world. And we want to see what America's got. We've got Santa Claus, you know. So there was a little bit of a cultural statement or a political statement going on there with it. I do think it's funny that in the movie they launch, you know, these rockets to go save, you know, Santa and the whole space program, and like, wow, this is so cool. And that plot point is never finished in the film. It just they're sending our astronauts off. And
They just ran out of money.
They ran out of money, or they just didn't figure out how to put it in the picture. I just think that's kind of funny, though. I had to get it in there.
Now, obviously, Vampira was a big part of the original Plan 9 from Outer Space. How do you find an actress to take her role, you know, 60, 70 years later?
My original actress, um, uh, she wasn't actually familiar with Vampira when I brought the project to her. And Ingrid kind of took a deep dive and figured it out. And I told her, you know, this is an iconic character, a personality. We have to do it justice. And Ingrid really did the research, and she figured out how to do the makeup and raise her eyebrows and the nails and everything. And we got the hair right and the costume and you know, the way, the physicality of Vampira and everything. She mastered it. And so if we're in the future, like when she wasn't able to do the show, when I got other actresses, the groundwork was there. And so we were, you know, I was always confident enough that even if I didn't get someone who looked or had the build that Vampira had, you could get the essence of it. And Lisa, who does it now in my show, she does a great job. She's got great facial expressions and captures all of that. And that's really, you know, that and Tor are the two most iconic characters in the show. And I have John Castro playing Tor, and he's like 6'3" or 4", bald, you know, big guy. And it's perfect. I mean, if I didn't have him and Vampira, I don't think it would feel like Plan 9.
I don't think it could.
No.
Yeah. Everything that you guys put on, whether it's an adaptation or an original, you know, there's all this fun that you're having with it. A lot of people forget to have fun when it comes to performing. How
Right.
important is the joy of performing to the Maverick Theater?
Oh, that's a number one. Absolutely. I mean, I always say that to the actors. I mean, if we're not having fun up here, you know, the audience can feel that, you know, especially we can feel it when you have that synergy of everybody there for whatever reason that has brought them there, because they're all volunteers at the Maverick. Everyone comes in here because purely off of passion, and you can't put a price on passion. Passion, you know, it pushes the envelope, and that's what all these performers do. And by them having so much fun on stage every time they perform it, the audience just feels that energy, and they have fun as well. It is the key ingredient to any successful live performance. If you have a cast that loves working together, that loves telling the story on stage they're working on and working with those characters, it's almost fail-proof. It really is. I mean, even if you have a mediocre script, mediocre production value, if the cast is committed and is doing an honest job and loving it, you're putting on a great show. So that is first and foremost here at the Maverick for me.
You guys have been around 24 years, nearly 20 at its current location. You don't discourage the audiences talking back to the stage. There is some interaction, but it's not to the point of distraction. Obviously, they're not throwing stuff on stage. They're not being obnoxious. There's no catcalling or anything of that sort. but there is like talking back, the way some people do at horror movies or grindhouse films, and it just adds to the ambiance of the Maverick. When did people start talking back to the performances in the theater?
Well, um, if I had a sign I could put up, it would be don't talk to the actors on stage. You're going to distract them and things are going to happen. But that being said, there are certain shows that that happens with, particularly Rocky Horror. And my second year, we did Rocky Horror here, and of course, there's the callbacks, and that happens quite a bit. Um, I don't I don't know how much talking back goes on. I mean, I'm sure if you're sitting in the audience, you're probably hearing people talk. I know when I go backstage at intermission, the actors go, "Who's the person that doesn't shut up in the second row?" And I'm like, "Okay, I don't know. I haven't heard it." And the actors can hear everything because everything goes towards them, vice versa. So I do know that audiences do that. They probably feel very comfortable, which is great because I want the environment at the Maverick to always feel very intimate and comfortable. So I think some of them just happen to be vocal. I don't encourage it. I think it's just something that happens because of the atmosphere that we've created here. Um, it certainly happens more on comedies. I wouldn't, expect it, when I'm doing Night of the Living Dead, although, there's times when there's jump scares and stuff like that, and that's when you want the audience to react. But like Plan 9, oh yeah, there's some misogynistic moments in Plan 9 that you expect audience members to say something out loud, and that is hilarious. It's fun. And then Santa Claus Conquers the Martians. That show has improvisation in many parts of it, where the other ones don't have that. And you find a lot of audience members are going to interact with the actors. A lot of times the actors instigate that as well. So the reputation of that would probably come from shows that I do annually or regularly, like Rocky Horror, Plan 9, and Santa Claus. But typically, I don't hear it too often. We just did Evil Dead the musical earlier this year, and yeah, audiences talk back in that one too. And we don't encourage it. I can tell you, every time I go off stage, someone goes, "What the hell is that person saying to me down there?" It's more of a distraction to the actors. They're like, "What are they doing?" I know in Kong it happens too. I've heard people talk, often through it. And I don't know if, like I said, if it's also just the environment, or people don't go to a lot of theater. I have my main goal with the Maverick was not only for me to be able to have the freedom to produce and direct the shows I like doing, and exercising those creative muscles, but also to bring a new audience into theater. There's, a minority of the world out there that actually goes to live theater. The majority of the world does not go to live theater. And I was trying to break that veil by putting out shows that would attract new audiences. My number one gateway show, as you can call it, is Night of the Living Dead, because everyone loves the horror genre. And every year I get a dozen people that come up to me and go, "I've never seen a play before in my entire life. Oh my God, I am coming back. This is too much fun." So I get a lot of theater goers that aren't theater goers. So it could be the fact that they don't know that it's not really theater etiquette to talk to the stage. You know what I mean? So that could be out there. And I think that's fun. I think it's part of the charm of the environment that's been created here. And I think sometimes people say things, maybe not even intentionally. It just kind of happens, and they can be the funniest things ever, and it'll just stop the show and everyone will just laugh, including the cast on stage. So there's that kind of sitcom-y, Carol Burnett Saturday Night Live thing that kind of can happen, which is everyone loves that stuff,
Right.
you know, and so it's great when it happens, but uh if I seem skeptical about getting labeled "you can talk back," it's like I'm like, don't go out of your way. If it happens instinctually, okay, but yeah, the actors get distracted too easy.
I got you. I got you. We just want to make sure that that's touched upon so people can understand either
Oh yeah,
etiquette or what happens.
yeah, exactly, exactly.
Yeah. One of Edgewood's sons, I know, at least I know one of them is still around.
Oh,
He's a voice actor. I was
no
wondering if,
kidding.
yeah, if he had seen Plan 9 at some point at the Maverick.
I didn't even know he had heirs to the throne. What's his first name? Do you know?
Michael, but it was on his IMDb page. Let's double check. He's not
Huh,
going by Wood as his last name. It's Michael McCarty.
huh.
Yeah, so he's a voice actor, and his IMDb page lists Ed D. Wood Jr. as his father or stepfather.
Stepfather.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's not made himself known if he has come and seen it. Um, I've had, the the actor that played Billy in Santa Claus Conquers the Martians. He's in New Jersey.
Mhm.
He reached out to us and flew out for quite a few years and saw Santa Claus, and at intermission would hand out black and white stills of him and Pia Zadora and talk about how he made the film while he was playing Oliver on Broadway. Um, and he's Victor's a wonderful man, so much fun. And so I do love it when people connect with us. Opening night of Night of the Living Dead, Judith O'Dea, who played Barbara, the female lead, happened to be living in the area, heard about the show, and showed up opening night. I could not believe it. It was amazing that, we started off. And that year when I did Night of the Living Dead, I was just going to do it the one year. It was in my season. But when Judith O'Dea came up to me and said afterwards, "Oh my gosh, you are doing this every year, right?" I was like, well, if that isn't a road sign to go, yes, I am. I'll be bringing it back next year. That was opening night. So right after Judith said that, I was like, yes. And here we are, year 19 doing it. So it is great when you get these people that have worked on the film or have a relation to the film and they come in and see the stuff.
You know, the very first play or musical that I saw at the Maverick was when you guys did Superman the musical.
Oh my gosh.
That's how long ago it was when you guys, like I mentioned, when it was still called the Block before it became the Outlets of Orange. And
Yes.
my friend and I came, and we still talk about one moment. So you
Mhm.
used this storefront that doubled as the storefront when you were at street level, and then the offices when you changed the backdrop to the Daily Planet.
Yes.
And one of the actors didn't notice that the set was being changed. And so she was trying to put the baby out. And as she put the baby out, the set had already changed in the backdrop. So instead of putting the baby through the window on the storefront, she threw the baby out of the top floor window of the Daily Planet into the city of Metropolis. And we couldn't stop laughing to this day. We sit there and go, remember when the lady threw the baby out the window in Superman the musical?
Oh my gosh, I forgot about that. Wow. Hey, I have a refrigerator that just turned on. Can you hear that high pitched sound?
No, you're fine.
Okay, good. I was going to go turn it off. I just didn't want you to be like, Brian, I can't hear you. There's this loud, pitchy noise. Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, that was my last show at the Block at Orange, before we moved here. Yeah. Oh my gosh. No one has ever come up to me in all these years here, and said, "I saw Santa Claus," or "Are you going to bring it back?" You're the first person that I can think of in the last decade or more that's even mentioned, "I'm not Santa Claus, Superman," and I'm like, "Wow, what a memory!" And we had so many people come out and see that because that play it was notorious for flopping, like only being open for a couple of weeks on Broadway, and so when we did it, all these people came out and go, "I can't believe you're doing this." And then they all left going, it was silly, but it wasn't that bad, So I always kind of expected someday to have audiences go, "Well, when are you bringing Superman back?" But that's never happened.
Right.
Isn't that funny?
I think it's hilarious. But what you're doing has been quite entertaining. And, maybe Superman needs to stay in Metropolis for a while longer.
Yes, I agree. I
Maybe
agree.
the 25th anniversary of the theater.
Yes, maybe, maybe.
A one night only. Who knows?
Oh, one night only. Oh, that's a lot of work for one night.
Right. No, that's something that you guys, yeah, because I think so. We went opening night and the play was a little delayed because you guys were still trying to figure out how to make Superman fly. That much I remember.
Yes.
So
Yes. Wow. That was good for you showing up opening night.
yeah, we came opening night. My buddy called me up. He was like, "They're actually showing Superman the musical. You want to go?" I was like, "I didn't even know there was a Superman the musical, and I'm a DC guy. Let's go check it
Wow.
out." Yeah.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
cool.
And here you are 24 years later, still making it happen.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. It's I didn't think it was going to last this long. I actually had no idea how long the theater would be around. I just kind of followed the indications, and the audiences keep coming. We have no advertising dollars. We can't advertise. It's all word of mouth. The newspapers were our biggest asset. They used to review us, but and that was primarily the Orange County Register. The Times has actually never once stepped across the threshold in my theater. And I've tried many times to get them because I figure with all the cinema stuff that I do, there's an audience up in LA that might be interested in seeing King Kong or Night of the Living Dead, stuff like that. But the Register was great, Orange County Register, for getting the word out, and it really helped build our audience. But newspapers have just dwindled so much, they had to let people go. And in 2018, the last show was when that was the last show we had reviewed from them. And so ever since then, there's been some times where it's a struggle to get people in because they don't even know what's going on or we're here. So we're all relied on Facebook and Instagram and stuff like that.
Well, when I came out for King Kong, there was a mother-daughter duo that came out from the Inland Empire.
No
So
kidding.
yeah, I think it was just north of San Bernardino's where they came out of for King Kong. So, there's enough people in Orange County and the IE that are willing to travel to the Maverick Theater.
That's awesome. And that's why I keep doing it, and it's still here.
Has there been one adaptation that you were eager to do that you just haven't pulled the trigger on yet?
There's more than one. There's so many I want to do. I can't get the rights for. I've always talked about doing Jaws on stage. I'd love to do that. Uh, I've got a Hitchcock I'd love to do. A Western. I'd love to do a Western on stage. There's I've wanted to do the Minority Report, but based off of the novelization or the short story. These I'm just trying to think. Casablanca, there's just film classics I can't get the rights to. That is such a shame because I know that the people that don't really necessarily care about, it because there's not a huge monetary value to it. But culturally, like let's say, you get some of the big movies that have been around a long time, like Casablanca, which was actually based on a play, and you get a good adaptation of it, then it all of a sudden appears in schools across the United States. And then all these younger generations that don't know who Humphrey Bogart is or any of that stuff, they're influenced by it, and it becomes relevant again, kind of like planning on making this, small comeback. And so for them, the longevity of their assets is established because there's a play adaptation of it that's circulating out there. And I can tell you, anytime you do a movie on stage, the students, the teachers are going to watch that movie. They're going to re-engage with it, and so there is a huge value, not monetarily, but in the long run, to get permission granted for stage adaptations. I know the go-to is turn it into a musical and put it on Broadway, which is a disadvantage because, certain shows Like All the President's Men should not be a musical, but it would make one heck of a fantastic thriller drama on stage, you know? So for me, there's countless screenplays out there that I would love to adapt on stage. There's no opportunity to do so.
Well, just hold out a few more years for Casablanca. It'll end up in the public domain.
Yeah, you're right. We'll see. That would be, oh boy, another what, almost 10 years?
Yeah. Well, Mickey just went into the public domain. So did
know.
what's it called? So did Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I'll let
Superman,
someone
I
else.
think, is next.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. You're right. But someone else can do the Steamboat Willie on stage.
Right. Someone just did a horror Steamboat Willie. So
Oh, of course they did.
yeah.
Of course they did.
Simon Phillips did. He called it the Mousetrap, and
Oh,
there's
beautiful.
Steamboat Willie mask. It's a fun horror comedy. So
Oh, that's great. I love it.
you know, as everything progresses for you, we're coming up. Plan 9, August 30th is opening weekend. I'll be there opening weekend for the Sunday evening show.
Mhm.
What can we expect for those people that saw it last year or the year prior? You know, just some of the slight tweaks that you think still needed to be made over the years with your adaptation.
Uh, they're very subtle. They're very, very subtle. I have a new actor joining the cast that plays multiple parts. And I find a lot of my audience will say, I love it. It always feels different. A lot of times it's not by design, it's the fact that you bring in a new actor, a performer. And I like to direct and follow what my actors are doing, meaning, how they present their characters. And that makes me feel like, oh, well, then your reactions should change to their reactions. And then that change kind of has a butterfly effect. And a lot of the stuff can be different, but still the same, just because you've added a new performer to the show. So I would say for people that have seen it in the past, you're seeing a new actor play a significant character, and that'll bring new energy and a new feel.
I love it. Brian, thank you so much for your time today. The Maverick Theater is 110 East Walnut Avenue in the city of Fullerton. Plan 9 from Outer Space begins its run on Friday, August 30th. MaverickTheater.com. Theater spelled E-R, not R-E. Where else can we find you on social media if we want to connect with you guys?
Instagram, Facebook. We're not on TikTok. Sorry.
It's all right. I don't think TikTok is conducive to an hour-plus long play.
No, not at all.
Brian Newell, thank you so much for your time. It's been a great pleasure. I will see you in another week.
Sounds good. I'll see you then, Robert. Take care.